Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm your host, Suzi Lula. As a spiritual therapist for over 20 years, I have the honor and privilege of ushering women and mothers just like you on a journey from simply surviving to powerfully thriving. I also have the honor of raising our son, Will, who is now a young adult, with my longtime partner, Jami, so I'm right there on the journey with you. Consider this your personal sanctuary, your space to meet your heart, embrace your messy, and come home to your most authentic, extraordinary self. My hope is that you leave resourced and inspired because you are here to shine. Welcome to Permission to Thrive. Welcome everyone to what I consider to be a very intimate and personal episode. It is with Jami and myself. And in this episode, we're talking about, over our 25-year relationship, the things that we bring in that create micro connections and the things that we sometimes bring in that create micro distancing. And when we do create that distancing, how we repair and reconnect and come back together to create deeper intimacy in this 25-year journey. So this is your sanctuary. This is your time. Relax, sit back, enjoy, and receive. Hi, welcome everyone. We're so happy to be with you guys. Jami and I have been doing a series of episodes on our relationship. So if you have not caught any of the previous episodes, just to introduce ourselves to any of you just getting to know us, we have been together for 25 years now, married for 22. We were friends before we even started dating. So we have a lot to share about the ups and downs of creating a long-term, intimate, connected relationship. I think we have been through it all.
I think we have. Like any relationship, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So we like to pop on every few weeks and just share with you the real journey, the real process, the real behind the scenes of what's going on in our relationship. So today we wanted specifically to talk about how we create micro connections in our relationship and how we sometimes create micro distancing in relationships. So when we are in any type of relationship with a child, with a mother-in-law, with a client, we're always either creating deeper connection or we're creating distance. And so we wanted to talk about transparently how we are aware of when we're creating closer connections or when our actions or behaviors are creating distance. And before we do that, we wanted to bring in our
Book of Love.
Wanted to share a little bit more with you all. This so far in all the episodes, if you want to go back and listen to some of the previous episodes, this Book of Love gets the most comments. So we wanted to take a moment and just share a little bit more about them. It is a simple journal. It's a simple journal that we have. We've had many of them, as you can imagine, 25 years. It's a blank journal that on any given day, either one of us is writing short notes to each other. And it is a way that we absolutely stay connected. They're just sometimes short, a paragraph, a sentence, sometimes they're longer. So we thought we would start sharing with you all something that's real from our journal.
I like the Book of Love because it's just that little communication sometimes, whether you're in a good space or whether you're in a bad space. It's just to remind Suze we're doing okay, that William's doing okay, that it's all working out, that I love her. We may agree to disagree or whatever it is, but it's a great tool to check in. It's simple, but it's beautiful and it means so much. Like this is from July 28th, 2023, and I was just leaving to go back out of town and Susie was just getting in from Europe, and I said, welcome home, lovey. I hold that you're rested and that your heart is full. I love you. I'm so happy you got some quality time with William. I know we'll figure everything out for the boys' transition to NYU with grace and ease. I love you. Dr. Lovey.
Because he is a doctor, Lovey.
Yeah.
So that's such a beautiful example, actually, of what's really going on in our life. I had the fortunate opportunity to go spend some time with Will in Europe. Jami was singing at conferences, so we weren't able to go together, but I did get to have that time. And then Will is in the middle of transitioning. He's moving to New York. So this was something that is reflective of our actual life and what is going on. And I remember the day of reading it, and just to hear from you that we're figuring this out where Will's transition is concerned, because it's a big decision that he made and one of the bigger moves in his life. And so just to hear reflected back to me that someone else gets it, that we're in the middle of a transition and someone else gets it and is saying, we're going to get through this together. It was very meaningful to me.
And we're actually going to be empty nesters. He's not going to be so close anymore. He's going to be on the other side of the country.
I know.
So there's a lot coming up around that for both of us.
Right.
You know?
And that's what I was going to say. And so to receive that from you is basically like, oh, I feel reassured and I feel soothed because I've been going through what I've been going through. You've been going through something. Will's been going through something. We're going through something as a family. And so it's showing that something as simple as taking, 30 seconds, 3 minutes to write something sincere from your heart to another individual is so much more valuable than you think the 3 minutes of taking to write it. Right? And you can go back and read these over and over again. So I'll read one. Mine to you was, Lovey, you must feel so good. You're going back to the gym. You took a spinning class. I love that we're doing a cleanse together, eating salads for dinner. I feel so good when I wake up in the morning. That's been a big deal for me. Here's to our long walks and deep talks. Here's to you. Here's to me. Here's to us.
A good one. It just takes me back to finishing my first record when I did my first solo record. And you looked at me and said, don't you feel so proud of what you've done? And I looked at her like, what are you talking about? I didn't know how to feel pride. I didn't know how to feel proud because where my mind would go to is, okay, what's next? What's the next record? What's the next tour? What's the next thing that I have to do? And you really got me to sit. And then I remember we were seeing a counselor at the time, and he said, look at all the work that it took to put this together, the writing the songs, the years spent, having life experiences to bring these songs forward, to finding musicians and a producer and a recording studio and getting people in to record and getting the artwork done. And I'd never thought of it like that. I'd never looked at the whole picture. And then you taught me, especially coming home from gigs, taking the time to go look at everything that I did to create this weekend, and whether it was prosperous or not prosperous, I began affirmatively looking at what I did do rather than what I didn't do, because I was so used to looking at what I didn't do right, what I didn't do well enough. Mm-hmm. And with the records I did, it never occurred to me to be proud. And you taught me that, and it's made a big difference. And it's something that I would teach my students, that sense of if we can feel proud of ourselves for our achievements and really witness it and really look at the smaller bit pieces that took to create whatever we're creating, when we can feel a healthy sense of pride around that, we don't need that outer validation to say, oh, you're good enough, oh, that's good, because we in ourselves are feeling that sense of pride. And that's what's really important.
Yes, and you've taught that to Will. You've used that phrase with him to learn to feel a healthy sense of pride.
Yeah, I did that with Benji and Briggy.
Yes, exactly. So as you're listening, I think most of us can relate to, we take an action and then we immediately are looking to what's next. What haven't I done? What didn't I do? What do I still need to do? Right. So I think that is such an important self-reflection, a gift for each one of us to give ourselves first and foremost, because when you learn, when I learn, when we learn to take a moment and appreciate and acknowledge what we have done, then it becomes more natural and more organic to share it either with our partner, with our child, with an in-law, with a friend. So I think that the essence of what we're saying here is we're seeking to show you these really, that's why we're calling it micro connections. You have learned to be proud of what you have done, look at what you have done, take that moment to embody and integrate what you have done, and then it becomes natural, organic to share it with the other person.
And also reflecting it back to you, it's like, I'm so proud of you for doing this podcast. I'm so proud of you for putting the classes together that you've put together, and look at the people that it's making in the community that you've created. I think it becomes easier to reflect it back to one another.
Yes.
I mean, you
Yes.
have a real natural ability to do that, but you taught me that. And then to share that with William, where it's not, I'm so proud of you because you won. No, I'm proud of you for showing up, and I'm proud of you for continuing on. When he finished his black belt, he went through, and it's like, I hope that you feel a really great sense of pride because you completed that. And that is the kind of thing that's going to work out in your life, the completion of things.
Exactly. And I think that we can use the word acknowledge yourself, appreciate yourself. And actually, I just had shared with Will the other day, I said, I so acknowledge you, not for getting into NYU. I so acknowledge you that during a challenging part of your life, you found the resilience inside of yourself to apply to another school. So for me, it had nothing to do with, he could have applied and got 7 rejection letters. It was that something inside of him compelled him, and that will create resilience in his life. So appreciations, acknowledgments are about the journey. And I always feel very appreciated by you and very seen by you. That's the other thing about appreciation and acknowledgement. It's really simple to send someone a text, leave someone a little note, put a note on their car seat, put a note on their pillow, send a text, say it verbally. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it goes a long way because you hear the words acknowledgement, you hear the word appreciation, you hear the word pride. Underneath it, it's that when you say to me, oh my gosh, babe, you're doing this podcast, or look at the community you're creating, or the way you teach and you articulate in such simple words, I feel very seen. I feel really heard and seen because it's showing me that you are actually seeing me. And hopefully then I do it vice versa. So we're seeking to share with everybody listening, this is meant to be something that's simple, that's easy, that doesn't take a lot of time, but it becomes a lifestyle. You're looking for what you can appreciate about the other person. And I always have this saying, what we appreciate appreciates. So there's another thing that you do. It's never lost on me, and it always makes me feel good. And I think you've done this for 25 years. Before you leave a room, every time you say, oh, Lovey, is there anything else that you need? Or is there anything you need from me before I leave? Do you need anything before I go to complete my work for today? Is there anything you need before I go back to the studio? Is there anything you need? You ask me before you leave a room, is there anything that you need? Most of the time it's no, but it makes me feel so seen, like I'm present there. You're asking me, and I appreciate that very much. It's never lost on me that you ask that.
You know, whenever I go away, especially when I'm going on a tour or a new place or something, you always, how are you feeling? What's going on? Are you nervous? Are you anxious? And a lot of times I am anxious. And what I'm aware of as a performer is that anxiety is not a bad thing for me, because it's kind of like ramping up energetically to go out and be on the edge of what I do, but it doesn't mean it's comfortable. And oftentimes you'll call me and it's like, how's your drive going? Are you okay? Have you been praying for Miles? Because that's something that I do. I start doing affirmative prayer for like Miles, and just like knowing everything's going to work out. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great experience. But you call me, and oftentimes I will say to you, I know that whenever I call and say, I need you to hold me in prayer, you need to hold me in consciousness, you're just like, okay. And I got to tell this one story, because this is how deep Suze is. There was one night early on when we were together, and I was up in the middle of the night. We were still living at our old place. I hope I'm not going to embarrass you. But I was having a really challenging time. I woke up in the middle of the night. My head was going, and you were talking in your sleep. And you said, babe, what's wrong? And I said, babe, I'm just scared and I'm just going through something. She says, okay, let's pray in her sleep, and did a full-on prayer treatment in her sleep, and just started an affirmative prayer and going into it. And so it is. She was back to sleep. I swear to God. I mean, in her sleep, because that's the consciousness that you have and that you bring and that you remind me of. Because it's real easy for me to forget and to go into fear, to go into anxiety. And I'm so grateful that you remind me of that. And oftentimes there's times when you sometimes forget, like when we're going through stuff with William, was like, hey, it's all working out. He's going to be fine.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. You took the words out of my mouth because it reminded me of what I just read.
Right.
That you had then said, we each have our own way, and you all listening, you have your ways that are very natural, that you don't even think about it. You don't even think about that this is a gift in the way that I can soothe and reassure another individual. So I have my way, but I was just going to say what I just wrote or what I just read here is you saying we're going to get through this transition with Will. And it was also reminding me of the other day you said, when he left, you said, Lovey, be aware that even though he's going through a transition, you don't have to take on his energy. And that was so helpful to me. And that was just a phrase, a reminder, a reassurance, and it stayed with me. So what we're sharing is find your own natural, easy, organic ways that you can communicate, that you can articulate to your partner, to your child, to another friend, an individual. You take the time to share something. And when you were sharing about when I call you, because I do call and ask, how are you? I also wanted to share that something that is so undervalued is that we all have the capacity to simply listen. And so when I call you, I'm not thinking about telling you something that's going to help make your drive better. Right. Or fixing something, or taking away your anxiety. I'm calling to be a space that you can share with me. Yeah. And maybe you're going to share, oh my God, I'm going to kill it. I feel great. Sometimes you share that also. And whatever is coming back to me, I feel so good to simply listen and allow you to have a space to share whatever. So I just also want to share that, because sometimes we're taught in this culture, when we go to listen to someone and they are going through anxiety, then we feel like, oh my gosh, we have to fix or do. And I want everyone leaving today with the awareness, oh my gosh, simply listening is more valuable than our culture could ever explain, because then the other person feels seen and heard. Yeah. And that's what we're all seeking.
It's that thing of creating a safe place to land and creating a space to be vulnerable, creating a space where we can just be vulnerable without someone feeling like they have to fix it. It's not about fixing it. It's just creating the space where I can say it out loud, because a lot of times getting to the other side of saying whatever's going on out loud often dissipates the anxiety or the fear or the self-judgment or whatever's going on. Yes. And that's a bonus. That's a bonus.
And allowing yourself to simply listen to another individual allows the other individual to feel accepted for exactly what they're experiencing. So it gives the core message to you that you don't have to not be anxious. Right. It's not better if you weren't anxious. You get the feeling of you are accepted for exactly what it is that you're going through. And what a gift to give another individual, or our children, or a mother-in-law, or a friend. You are accepted fully and completely for exactly what it is that you're going through. And I don't have any pressure to need to make it better. I simply am reflecting that to you, that I accept you, I love you, I see the best in you, I see the highest in you, you'll get through this, right? Without even saying a word. The other thing that I'm thinking about that is so simple, because we're wanting to just offer some of the simplest, easiest things you can do in the midst of, we all have very busy lives, right? And one of the things we do is just have dinner together every night. And after dinner, we play games. And we play this game called Quirkle. And it's just become a ritual as we have become empty nesters.
And I beat you the last 3 games.
And he beats me often.
No.
Yeah, I can get pretty competitive.
Oh, you're very competitive.
Yeah.
But so am I.
But really, it's just a ritual that we have created that I look forward to. Just our time of connecting, asking about the days. Now, for many, many of you, you're not empty nesters and you have 3 kids also sitting at the dining room table. And so your dinners might look very differently. But what you can do is I can remember when Will was young, we used to put a blanket down in the winters and we'd have our dinners in front of the fireplace. Or we'd have our dinners at the coffee table around the sofa. And so we created informal ways to connect because we would find that the more relaxed he was, the more he'd share about his day. So instead of having the formal dinner time at the dinner table, we would create really relaxed times. These are our ways. What we're seeking to share is how simple it can be. And so I hope that as we're sharing, you all are getting plenty of ideas of like, oh, this could be such a simple thing. I remember when Will was in middle school and high school, driving back and forth to school, my big thing was introduce me to some music that you're listening to. And we would just like blast the music so loud in the car, but it would create such great conversations between us. So
yeah, and he learned most of the words to Hamilton. It's like, what? There's a lot of words to Hamilton.
A lot of words.
And then pentatonics. You guys.
The pentatonics. Really, exactly. These are easy ways that hopefully you are getting inspired of some things that would work so easily in your family, in your relationship. And that reminds me of my marriage mantra. My marriage mantra is, I didn't get married to stop dating. And I know that's easier said than done. We're all busy. We're raising kids. We have our careers. You probably have 3 activities that you have to take your 3 kids to even today. And I did not get married to stop dating. People used to tell me, wait until the honeymoon is over. And it's not that we have some blissed out, zened out life. I mean, life, we've been through everything together. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I didn't want to become 20 years later the 2 people who were sitting across the table from each other without anything in common. And this goes back to something we've talked about in previous episodes that's very important to me and I think to us. So if you want to go back to any of the other episodes with Jami and myself, it is sincerely liking the other person, to find the ways. You may be going through a really challenging chapter in your marriage. We have gone through very challenging chapters. So far today, we haven't been talking about them. We'll get into that in just a moment. But to complete this part, I wanted to stay friends. I want to like you. I want you to like me. And I always say sometimes being in like is much more powerful than being in love. And so we have found over the years, whether we're going through a busy time or a spacious time, what are our ways to have date nights or day dates?
Yeah, the day dates, our walks, you know, we've walked for years, but like during the pandemic, we really started walking a lot. 3, 5, 7 times a week, we'd walk the 5-mile loop around the golf course where we live. And we've gone and we've hit golf balls or simple things like that. We're just down the street from a driving range and a golf course. But just finding those things is amazing. And we didn't go to a movie for a long time because of the pandemic. So just going to a theater and seeing a film, and I guess we have to get 2 things of popcorn because I eat so much.
To have my own.
You're like, can you wait until the movie starts?
I get possessive about my popcorn. I want to make sure I'm going to have enough.
It's one of the micro distancing.
Yeah. But the micro connection then is to each have our own thing of popcorn, and then I can feel fully relaxed, and you can eat as much as you want, as fast
over
as
my own popcorn.
Yes, as much as you want, as fast as you want. But that brings me to something else, honestly, because I have to say, in full transparency, I'm really picky about what I watch, and I'm so freaking high maintenance about. I don't want any action. I don't want any violence. I know that I'm very high maintenance. So that just brings me to something else, which is putting in some effort to find movies that each one of us would appreciate and like, and something that simple, taking the effort, making the effort to find something that we would both appreciate goes a really long way. I hope that this gives you some ideas, some inspiration, and we would be remiss if we did not also include in this episode some of the ways, I will speak for myself, that I can be responsible for micro or macro distancing in our relationship, because I am aware that I can do both. So I will bring a real life example that happened within the past week. And again, in full transparency, I will reveal a way that I was so aware that I created a micro, or maybe it was, I'll ask you, maybe it was more of a macro distancing, but for sure it was distancing. And it was just last week. And so as we said, Will is going through a transition. He's getting ready to transfer and move to New York City, go to NYU. And he came home, and my understanding is that we were going to talk about some logistics, about packing up when we were leaving, all the things. And so the three of us are sitting around the coffee table. And the first thing that you said was, oh, I guess we're not going to celebrate my birthday then. So Jamie's birthday was July 22nd. And
Mark it in your calendars.
Mark it in your calendars. He was up singing at some conferences. And that was when Will and I were in Portugal. And so it just came into your mind, it's current. We did not get to celebrate as a family. And so you innocently say that, and then something inside of me, I think because in hindsight, I think because I was coming into the conversation around the logistics of Will's transition, I think I was probably already anxious. Logistics are not my strong suit. When are we going? All the things. And so I immediately said, what did I say? I can't remember exactly. I don't remember the words that I said, but I remember it was the energy of, we're not here to talk about your birthday. We're here to talk about our son's transition. Yeah. And I think whatever words I said, I think that was loud and clear. We're not here to talk about your birthday. We're here to talk about this transition. And I could feel in the moment my own anxiety. I could feel in the moment also how off-putting my energy also was, not only to you, but to Will. Because I looked over and I was thinking, oh my gosh, our son must feel so awkward right now. Because his mom did not say, oh my gosh, of course we're going to celebrate your birthday. What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? That was not the energy I brought in. And so I was not able to shift in that moment, but I felt terrible. And so Will then drove away when we were complete. Will drove away and I just felt terrible. It's not me. Of course I want to celebrate your birthday. And my own anxiety got in the way of my own authenticity. And so right when Will left, I came to you and I said, I so apologize. I deeply apologize. And you graciously received it. I'll give you a chance to talk about your experience. And then I immediately called Will and I said, oh my gosh, honey, I just apologize to you for the way that I was unable to say, of course, let's celebrate your dad's birthday. Like, hello. And I hope that you didn't feel awkward, because I can imagine that you did feel awkward. So I wanted to bring this up, A, because it's honest and truthful, B, because of how easy it is then to repair. And I think that one of the things that I've learned over the years is to try to cut myself some slack when I come with my very human self. But what I do try to do to bring reconnection after I've distanced, I do try to repair wholeheartedly and honestly and transparently. So
you definitely assume responsibility when you're wrong, very, very wrong. You know, it might not be in the moment. It might be an hour. It might be the next day. But you come back and it's like, look, this happened. I realized that I spoke and it was really awkward and I'm really sorry. And we do want to celebrate your birthday. you do find ways to come back and take personal responsibility. I mean, we've had our challenges, but there's very few times in our relationship that you haven't come back and assumed responsibility for your part, which is personal responsibility is a big thing in our culture. If we could all just assume personal responsibility for our part in things, I think that it would resolve things a lot quicker. And also then we feel better inside.
Yes.
You know, I cleaned up my side of the street.
Yes, because the only reason we would create external distance with another person is if we were already internally conflicted.
Right.
So I was internally, and then I created that. And so personal responsibility becomes the bridge. So we're human and we will create distance because we're human. Personal responsibility is the bridge that then brings us back to connection. Because it isn't so much that we're going to be imperfect and human and create distance. That is going to happen. It's being able to have the skills and the practices and the tools that you know how to then repair. You know how to take that distance and learn how to come back together and create often deeper connections, deeper intimacy, because that was very real that the other day. And of course I want to celebrate you. And you are absolutely right in that when we take our own personal responsibility, it mostly feels good inside of ourselves. I felt good and then I came back into alignment. So then that's going to invite us back into connection.
And for me, I'm aware, like when I micro distance, a lot of times it's when growing up in a home where, you know, expressing your feelings, and I didn't even know I had feelings until I was in my mid to late 30s. So I would hold on to stuff and I would get anxious, and I can't think of a specific thing, but I would get short. I'd get short with Suzi, I'd get short with William. And then when I would finally say, I'm really scared, it goes back to gigs and feeling that anxiety. I didn't even know how to articulate it way back when, until I became able to articulate it and say, I'm really feeling anxious about this. I'm going to be in front of a new audience or an audience I've been in front of before. I'm uncomfortable. I don't know why, but I'm feeling anxious. And once I assume responsibility for that, say that out loud to you, it's like, oh, it's perfectly understandable that you would feel that way. And I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. And what can I do to help? And those are the moments I feel like I really micro distance in our relationship. And I endeavor to be able to say more upfront. It's like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. Instead of blowing up and getting angry or saying something thoughtless or unkind, I strive to get more to the point of just saying, look, I'm anxious. So if I bite your head off or something, you know, please be aware. It's like, I'm just anxious and just hold for me. And
that goes.
And I, you know, my intention is not to bite your head off. So.
Well, that goes such a long way. And I hope that I've gotten better over the years at saying the same thing. Yeah. Just that simple inner awareness first. Because I think back in the day, and for those of you listening, we don't always have the self-awareness of what we're feeling. Right. And so I always have this saying that when I learn to talk it out, I won't have to act it out. Yeah. Yeah. And often we are acting things out because we don't have the self-awareness to understand, oh, I'm feeling really anxious right now. So as we all grow on this path and become more self-reflective, then we can go say to the other person, I know that I'm feeling really anxious right now because of XYZ. And it absolutely just creates such spaciousness because you're giving the other person a context of your anxious behavior. So in the past, if you have been short-tempered or harsh, I didn't know where it was coming from. I was just on the receiving end. Right. But when you give me the context, oh, I'm feeling anxious about XYZ. Yes, of course your intention isn't to bite my head off, but if you are impatient or if you are not your normal relaxed self, oh, he's given me the heads up. I have a context. I have an understanding. Then I become your ally and your advocate and your supporter rather than your adversary. Right. And so that's been really helpful for us, I believe. And then the last thing that I will say that we will do an entire episode on, maybe next time, is the distancing that happens when each person is triggered. So the ones I guess that we have been talking about, I was triggered about your birthday, but you didn't get triggered. And then when you're saying you're anxious and you're giving me the heads up, then I'm not triggered. But what about in relationship when each person is triggered? That is the most challenging knot to untangle, so to speak. And so I'll give an example from our relationship, and then we will do an entire untangling episode. But in our relationship, I would say, and you tell me if you agree, that the area of finance and money has probably been our both biggest challenge and greatest growth and transformation and evolution. And I will say it is because we each came into the relationship. I came in with my own suitcase of a consciousness of lack, and you came into the relationship with your own suitcase of a consciousness of lack. And so we would definitely in the past bump heads, and you would do or say something and I would be triggered, and I'm sure vice versa. And so learning to navigate our relationship when we are aware that we're each triggered. So I would say, just like you were saying before about giving the heads up, giving the context, one of the things that's really assisted me is the feedback you've given me around that. So when we're not in the moment of talking about money or finance, I'm remembering conversations you've had with me where, let's say we're walking and we're at a neutral time. So I guess that's the first step. If you know that you and your partner are both triggered about a particular subject, then take the time to get centered in your own self and communicate with the other person when you're not in the middle of that conversation. So you were always really good about that. In the moment that we were neutral and we were very connected, you would find a way to come and say to me, you know what, Lovey, I want to be in conversation with you about money and finance. But when we come to the moment, you bring in all your past. And it's very challenging for me to stay present in a conversation about money when you bring in a boatload of judgments and criticisms and unfinished business about our past that you're still carrying. And I can tell you that hearing that feedback was not easy for me to digest. And I, for sure, in my own mind, wanted to say, well, if you would just XYZ, then I wouldn't be bringing the boatload of unfinished business. I wanted to say that so badly and probably did many times. So it wasn't easy for me to hear that feedback. But underneath the feedback, it rang so true to me. That is exactly what I was doing. I would say, oh, let's talk about money and let's set our intentions. And I would have all the right lingo. And then as soon as we finished setting our beautiful intentions, I would start bringing out my checklist of what you didn't do last month and what you didn't do last year and what you didn't do 6 months ago. And it was just my artillery, and it was my protection. Not proud of it, but it was my protection, and it's what I learned. And that's not to condone it, but it is what I witnessed. And what I witnessed, I brought into this relationship energetically. And I'm not proud of it, but I will always appreciate the way that you came and asked for what you needed. And I would like to think I got better at it, and I would like to think I stay current, but it then put me on a really important trajectory on my path of how to come to conversations around money that I was triggered around and own my own side of the street. Sometimes it's better not to talk about something that, and I don't mean that by not talking about the elephant in the room or pretending it's not there or resisting it. I'm saying that it took me the time that it took me to really digest that feedback and really set an intention that you're accurate. If I'm going to come, I need to come clean. And there was a ton of inner work that I had to do. So anything that you want to share about times that we've both been reactive or
It's sometimes it's really hard to sit with it and be with.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to wait until I'm in a place of neutrality to be able to come forward with the things that I'm challenged with. Because if I, in the moment, it's like it becomes, well, you did this and you did this, and it's just, it gets ugly instead of waiting till I'm in a neutral place and I wanted to close the gap on what happened the other day or yesterday or whenever it was, and I felt really uncomfortable. And this is my challenge, it's like, but waiting till I'm at a point of neutrality, I think is the best advice that I can bring to the table. And it's not always easy to get there because I want to be right. And it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be in the love,
Well, also, I think it is about wanting to be right, but it's also, at least for me, it's about sitting with the emotions that come up for me are sometimes so uncomfortable to sit and be present with the unfinished business from my past that is just more comfortable to sometimes create a conflict because then I really just don't have to sit with myself because that can be very uncomfortable, very painful. And so I think if anyone listening has had that experience of you're creating conflict in your relationship because you're inwardly conflicted and can be very painful to sit with that. It was a lifetime of hearing lack consciousness and being modeled lack that was very challenging for me to unravel. And so I think what I would offer people too is just take it in tiny little moments. It's like then we would get back together and it's like, oh, well, let's not meet for an hour and talk about our finance. Let's literally just set an intention and then call it a day and start to tiny step by tiny step create a healthier energy inwardly and between us. So anyway, I hope that is helpful because I think that is the biggest thing we can untangle when both people are reactive. And like I said, we will do another episode because money and finance and abundance has been a very big part of our journey. And I think we're in a good place with a lot of learning. So anything else that you want to share?
That's it.
Yeah. So we hope that this has been helpful, that it's inspiring, and it's inspiring different ideas and small ways that you can create a lifestyle that is blossoming, that is fulfilling, that is connected, that is more intimate. As always, we just love to hear your feedback, love getting all the feedback about the Book of Love and how any of this has assisted you or any ideas that you all would like to hear about different topics from two people that have been on a very long journey together. And if you have received something from this episode, we would be so grateful if you would subscribe to Permission to Thrive and leave a 5-star review. Much love, everyone.
Peace.
So hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that you are leaving inspired with ideas that you can bring into your relationships, be it with a spouse, a partner, a child, a parent, friendships, your career, that will assist you to create deeper, more intimate, more connected relationships, and then to be able to repair when you do create distance in those relationships. And as always, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to Permission to Thrive and leave a 5-star review. Thank you so much for listening. If there was something in this conversation that spoke to you, we'd so appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with women and mothers you know, because you are here to thrive. See you next time.